Fair warning, if you're upset or triggered in any way by sexual assault, I would suggest not watching this review because given the subject matter of the movie, it's kind of unavoidable. Revenge is the directorial debut of Coralie Fargeat. It stars Matilda Lutz as Jen, the mistress of a CEO who takes her on a hunting retreat with a couple of his friends for a weekend away from the wife and kids to, have sex and do drugs and shit. And after one of those friends brutally rapes her and she's left for dead, Jen embarks on a quest to get vengeance on her attackers. I should start by saying I'm not particularly big on rape revenge flicks. As I've mentioned before on this channel, sexual assault is usually my line when it comes to, film. And unless it's handled with extreme nuance and purpose, something that few films actually manage to do, I think that it should be really just avoided altogether, because it's usually quite disrespectful to those who have actually suffered through it. So when festival buzz started coming around that this film was a feminist perspective on the tired subgenre of rape revenge flicks, you could say that my interest was piqued at the very least. A female-helmed, hyper-violent rape revenge flick that not only was claiming to be feminist, but was also being hailed as a new perspective on a tired genre, I kind of found it hard to believe. So now that I've seen it, is it all that? Yes and no. Revenge is a film that I would not definitively call a feminist movie, but it's one that I feel does contain a lot of core concepts and explore a lot of topics that are important to feminism as a whole. This movie's more of a commentary on the male gaze and on rape culture overall, but while doing so, it still manages to be a really entertaining, hyper-violent exploitation flick. It doesn't necessarily reinvent the genre, but it does do a lot of things that I really appreciated in the vein of subversion and inversion, and I really liked it a lot overall. This film has a lot of things going for it, from its score to its acting to its insane levels of hyperviolence, which are all driven home by incredible practical effects. But where this film really stands out to me overall is its craft, both in terms of Fargeat's direction and in terms of the way that it plays with your expectations in really clever ways based around the genre's tired tropes. The movie starts off the way you'd expect, albeit a little artsier. The opening act of this movie is like something out of a music video, especially with the way Jen's treated both by characters on camera and by the filmmaking itself. Jen's being sexualized by both the characters in the film, who are essentially treating her as an object, and the filmmaking, the camera work, the editing, which are basically painting her the way that we're expecting to see her and the way that the characters in the film are seeing her. All of that is absolutely intentional, though, as from the moment of the rape onward, there is a distinct shift, and this becomes Jen's film, where we're treated to her perspective, her agency, and her retribution for the horrors she's had to endure. And from that point onward, her journey becomes somewhat of an on-the-nose phoenix metaphor, and within the film's world of magical realism, we witness her literal rebirth a la The Crow, right down to her hair color changing, as she seeks retribution on her attackers in a way that I found pretty refreshing for a film like this. She's not flaunting her sexuality to help her get revenge. She's not savoring the fact that she's killing these people. She's not aiming to torture or maim in the way that I Spit on Your Grave goes for it. She's just a girl on a mission with the sole belief that some people don't deserve to live. Let's talk about the aforementioned assault now. Like I said, I don't think that rape is a thing that any film should take lightly. I think it needs to be handled with a distinct level of nuance and purpose. And I think Fargeat managed to portray the act itself in a way that I'd actually consider to be nuanced. In a film where the entire plot is centered around a rape, and the actual act is important to the narrative, she manages to capture all the powerlessness that Jen feels, while not being overly graphic about it or relying on exploitation. The rapists themselves are treated as real people. Gross, slimy, awful people, sure, but real people nonetheless. They're not caricatures. Well, one of them kind of is. But it's still disturbing because people are actually like this in real life. People who act out of fear, or act out of what they believe is entitlement, or people who just don't act at all and are complicit sheerly through complacency. People who try and cover up the sexual assault of a young girl and act as though murder is a saner option than going to prison. That's what I mean when I say this film is really different, but an extremely important perspective of this subgenre. It's an analysis of the male gaze and of rape culture as a whole, more expansively. A character will ask, why did you push her off that fucking cliff, instead of, why did I rape her? And that speaks volumes. It really does. And that's what made me feel most for Jen in this film, I think. The fact that people like this actually exist in real life, and in most circumstances, the events of this film should befall those people. And sadly, that is not the case. Sorry about that tangent, I just feel really strongly about this subject. Anyway, the actual filmmaking behind this is expertly done. It's extremely artsy at times. There's a lot of focus on sounds, sometimes coupled with grotesque, sometimes psychedelic imagery, and it really just makes you all around uncomfortable and puts you on edge and makes you just feel itchy. The movie makes your skin crawl, both from its subject matter and in terms of just its imagery. For a debut feature, it's exceptionally impressive. Farjah knows what she wants, crafting a world of vibrant colors, a pulsing electronic score to amp up the tension, some insanely trippy sequences, and blood. So much blood. There's not too much about this film I really didn't like, honestly. Like I said, some of the symbolism was a little on the nose, and if you're going into this expecting a grounded, gritty piece about sexual assault, don't. This film is very much set in a land of magical realism, and certain things happen that are just not possible at all. I could have done with a little more development for Jen, just in the sense that post-revival, she doesn't speak at all. There's not much dialogue across the board in this film, really. And while that didn't necessarily bother me, I would have liked to know a little bit more about her character. All in all, though, Revenge is a slick, stylish, intense thriller that really never stops once it gets going. Right down to the insanely over-the-top, borderline comical cat-and-mouse game of a third act. I'm gonna say that Revenge is a must-see. It's got something for everybody. For you art house lovers, there's plenty of neon and psychedelic imagery. Foreign horror lovers, there's definitely a distinctive Euro feel to this film. If you like midnight movies, this movie has buckets and buckets and buckets of gore. And like, if you hate women, there's plenty of misogyny in this film, but there's a price to pay for it, and also fuck you. It's out in limited theaters right now, and it's also available on VOD before it comes to Shudder later this year, and I definitely recommend checking it out. I thought it was really a great time. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. If you like this channel, you want to see more, click down there, like, comment, subscribe. Hey, in that description, there's a link to my Kickstarter campaign for my first feature film. Click it, consider donating, tell your friends, there's lots of cool perks in there. But even if you don't, guys, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I will see you all very soon.